Hueda eagerly watched director Su Qian. Zhao Shou did not speak, but he seemed quite interested and focused his attention. Su Qian. Chenin said that Yunlu Academy not only sheltered my family, but the director even personally took up the carving knife to confront the court's coercion. Although this act of protecting Confucian values was not merely done to curry favor with me, I must remember this kindness. I might as well write them a poem. It's not right to stay under their care for free. At this thought, he smiled and said, I do have a poem in mind. At this moment, he should have confidently said, bring me brush and ink. But since his calligraphy was poor, and he had no charcoal pencil at hand, he refrained. He walked gracefully around the room. When he saw the lush green bamboo leaves outside the window, he pretended to have a sudden inspiration and said, I've got it. His eyes lit up similarly. Zhao Shou eagerly asked, does it have to do with bamboo? Su Qian nodded slightly. After a brief moment of recollection, he said, clinging to the green hills, never letting go. Already knowing it was a poem about bamboo, Zhao Shou carefully savored the lines. The word cling in this line is truly profound. With just one word, it vividly conveys the resilience of bamboo. Su Qian continued, rooting deep into the rocky ground. Zhao Shou gave a slight nod. This complemented the previous line, and also reflected the bamboo's steadfastness in a harsh environment. Su Qian's voice grew even more resonant. After 1,000 trials, still unyielding, enduring winds from all directions, director Zhao Shou's breathing quickened. The latter two lines describe the bamboo's attitude towards external pressures. Even after countless trials, still unyielding. Among the plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum, he favored bamboo. Otherwise, he wouldn't have built his residence in a bamboo grove. He had previously written poems about bamboo, but compared to Su Qian's poem, he had to admit his own fell short. A single poem, from inside out, almost perfectly portrayed bamboo's steadfast and unyielding character. No wonder he's the great Feng scholar. Li Mubai praised it, saying the poetic meaning and phrasing, though lacking raw emotion, were still rare in their timeless quality. Zhang Shen criticized it as foolish, claiming it brought out the bamboo's tenacity and resilient simplicity. The overly polished verses actually made it less impactful. Chen Tai stroked his beard and chuckled. At first glance, it seemed to be about bamboo, but it was actually an ode to a noble person. Marvelous, marvelous. The three great scholars finished their commentary and immediately looked at Su Qian. Does this poem? Su Qian instantly understood their intentions and smiled, shaking his head. It's unnamed. So, teachers, feel free to refine it. The three scholars retreated a few steps in unison, eyeing each other warily, each planning how to claim naming rights. At this moment, Zhao Shou let out a dry cough. His old face looked a bit flushed, perhaps feeling ashamed of what he was about to say. He spoke slowly. Let me name it. Zhang Shen and the others stiffly turned their necks to look at him. Weren't we just saying how much we disapproved of Su Ningyan's worldviews? Zhao Shou frowned and said indignantly, why are you looking at me? Isn't this poem Su Ningyan's tribute to the eternal bamboo and me, who has upheld Yunlu Academy for decades, like this bamboo, clinging to the green mountain, never letting go, enduring the wind from all directions? After finishing, he gave no time for the three scholars to react. With a wave of his hand, he said lightly, clear out for 300 li. Don't disturb me while I write. As soon as he finished speaking, the three great scholars disappeared. Zhao Shou spread out the paper, picked up the brush with excitement, and exclaimed, what a poem, what a poem. My life is complete. This poem is yours, he said. But as your mentor, I offered guidance and refinement, right? Su Qian's mouth twitched uncontrollably. He didn't want to appear so petty, but he simply couldn't hold back. At this moment, the three scholars reappeared, furious. Dean's assistant, they shouted. But Zhao Shou remained unfazed and calmly said, clear out for 500 li. A sudden flash of light came and went. The scholars vanished once more, but the next moment, they reappeared, shouting, shameless old thief. We will never coexist with you. Zhao Shou also became more heated. It seems you've all been idle for far too long. Let me help you out. Su Qian stood awkwardly in the middle, too afraid to speak, fearing he'd be caught in the crossfire. He thought to himself, maybe I should just write another one. The entire bamboo forest was filled with shimmering light. But then, and countless powerful forces clashed. In addition to this, the sound of angry shouting echoed from time to time. The students of Yunlu Academy were left completely bewildered. What's going on? They wondered. Why is the dean fighting with the scholars? Why such a sudden outburst? Just don't let it affect us. It's not uncommon for the three scholars to brawl. But why is the dean involved this time? What's going on exactly? It's not common for the three scholars to fight. The last few times were because of issues surrounding Su Shikue. Su Qian could hear these comments, but he had no way to refute them. He could only smile awkwardly. Meanwhile, in the courtyard where the Su family women were resting, Li Miaojin and Chu Yuanjin suddenly looked up at the sky, their hearts racing. Su Erlang waved his hand and said, don't worry about it. It must be Big Brother writing another poem, and the three scholars are fighting over it. Li Miaojin and Chu Yuanjin remarked, this doesn't seem like the work of a mere fourth-ranked expert. But then they paid no more mind and continued listening to Su Erlang speak. Linin had a strange talent. If he didn't want to learn something, he simply couldn't. No matter how much you taught him, it was futile. So don't think you're special. Don't imagine that you'll be the one to enlighten him. Su Erlang almost added, don't set yourselves up for failure. Li Miaojin shook her head and said, no, that won't do. Back when I stayed at the Su family, I promised Madame Su I'd help teach Linin. I had to delay due to other matters. But now that everything's settled, it's time to fulfill my promise. Chu Yuanjin smiled confidently. I've seen plenty of clever people. Every now and then, it's fun to meet someone with less natural aptitude. Not long after, when Su Qian and Zhang Li returned to the courtyard, they noticed the atmosphere felt somewhat tense. He muttered, I was only gone for a short while, and now the world's changed. Nobody told me. Li Miaojin slumped on the ground, her pretty face looking dazed, her pupils unfocused, resembling a heartbroken girl. Chu Yuanjin, clutching his sword that remained unsheathed, squatted on the ground, expressionless. Though the throbbing vein at his temple betrayed his frustration, Su Qian observed the two companions. You two seem to have encountered some trouble. Neither of them replied. Su Erlang sighed. Master Chu and Taoisley insisted on teaching Ling reading and math. Su Qian was shocked and bowed respectfully to the two of them. After all, there aren't many people willing to endure such hardship these days. Later, Su Qian took his family back to the Su mansion. Second Uncle Su hired 3 carriages to bring the servants back from the outer city. In the hall, Chu Kaiwei had brought top-tier pastries from Guiwei Pavilion. Lina and little Do Ding were happily eating with her. Chu Yuanjin and Su Erlang were having an intense discussion. Each was showing off their knowledge. Li Miaojin was meditating in the guest room, while Su kept chatting nonstop. Su Qian sat on the rooftop. Beside him was Zhong Li, wrapped in a cloth robe, sitting obediently with her knees hugged. Su Qian thought to himself, with the Su family's current combat strength, even if Yuan Jing wanted revenge, they'd need to send an army to besiege us. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to carry out an assassination. When Daoist Jilian's lotus seeds ripen, we'll have to leave the capital. When the time comes, let Yang Qinhuan and Kaiwei keep watch. The family witness agreed to protect the Su mansion. He wouldn't want to force me into wiping them all out. Taking the head of Yuanjing's first general, after reminding Zhong Li, Su Qian said, stay here on the roof and don't move. I'm going inside to meet an important guest. Wait until they've left before you come down. Zhong Li nodded silently. Su Qian returned to his room, closed the doors and windows, and took out a piece of the earth book. He poured out a Fujin talisman. This talisman had been given to him by Luo Yuheng through Chu Yuanjin during the northern expedition. To this day, he still wasn't sure whether his kind aunt gave him this item as a gesture of goodwill, or if Daoist Jinlian had requested it for him. Before returning to the Su mansion, he used the earth book to contact Daoist Jinlian, confirming through him that Luo Yuheng was more or less an ally, and could be trusted to some extent. Daoist Jinlian also said the Fujin talisman could act as a conduit to contact Luo Yuheng directly, eliminating the need to travel to the imperial city. Su Qian gripped the talisman tightly, focused his spirit, and channeled a strand of spiritual energy. National teacher, this is Su Qian, he said. His urgent need to contact her was mostly to quickly clarify the matter of the mud pill. Otherwise, it felt like a thorn in his throat. Additionally, it served as a reminder to Luo Yuheng, warning her to guard against Yuanjing's schemes. It also helped to boost his favorability with her, so that one day, Luo Yuheng could become a powerful ally. Auntie, I don't want to try so hard anymore, he murmured to himself for a moment. The talisman showed no reaction. It seemed the national teacher had no intention of paying attention to him. As expected, his status and position were still too low. In the eyes of someone as noble and powerful as Luo Yuheng, he still fell far short. Just as he was about to give up, suddenly a golden beam of light descended from the sky, piercing through the roof and landing inside the room. Within the golden light, a graceful figure emerged. She wore a lotus crown, a Taoist robe, and had a vivid red cinnabar mark on her forehead. Her features were exquisite. She possessed both the intellect of a kind aunt, the charm of a mother's friend, and the playful elegance of a girl next door. Su Qian felt a strange emotion stir within him. She had really come. But before Su Qian could feel any joy, he suddenly heard the sound of roof tiles shifting. Next, a figure tumbled from the eaves, landing heavily in the courtyard with a thud. Luo Yuheng curiously asked, why is there someone on your roof? I arrived too quickly and didn't notice. Su Qian gave a wry smile. It's not that you didn't notice. Fate made you overlook her. Poor Sister Zhong, he added. Luo Yuheng's clear eyes glimmered. Cold as a fairy, she replied. Is it appropriate for you to summon me?